In 2010, a piece of software walked into the most protected building in Iran and destroyed 1,000 machines without anyone firing a shot. That part is famous. Here's the part that should actually scare you. It didn't stay there. Stuxnet got out. It ended up on more than 100,000 computers in 115 countries. And the only reason we know any of this is that it made one mistake, and a tiny antivirus company nobody had heard of noticed. Start with what was really inside it, because a virus on a USB stick undersells it by an enormous margin. Most malware exploits one unknown flaw, one 0-day, a bug the vendor doesn't know exists and has no patch for. A good 0-day is worth 6 figures on the open market. Stuxnet used 4 unknown Windows flaws, burned in a single operation. Nobody had ever seen that. Nobody has really seen it since. It also signed itself. Windows checks whether a driver is signed by a company it trusts. And Stuxnet's drivers were using real certificates stolen from 2 hardware companies in Taiwan whose offices sat in the same business park. Someone physically took those keys. So before a single line of the payload ran, this thing had already spent 4 0-days and committed 2 acts of theft in another country just to look boring to Windows. Then it went looking. Stuxnet spread widely but attacked almost nothing. On a normal computer, it sat inert. What it wanted was a very specific piece of industrial equipment, a Siemens controller, the small, ruggedized computer that runs physical machinery, attached to a specific model of frequency converter, spinning at a specific range of speeds, made by one of 2 manufacturers, one Iranian, one Finnish. If it didn't find that exact fingerprint, it did nothing at all. This wasn't a weapon aimed at computers. It was aimed at one room. And when it found that room, it did the thing that makes engineers go quiet. It recorded normal. For weeks it sat and watched the sensor readings of healthy centrifuges, saved them, and then, while it drove the rotors past their design limits and slowed them back down over and over, it played that recording back to the control room. The operators watched a loop of a good day while the machines tore themselves apart. That is a replay attack against physical reality. Roughly 1,000 centrifuges were destroyed. Iran's own reporting to inspectors showed them swapping machines out at a rate that made no sense. Their engineers suspected bad parts. They suspected sabotage in the supply chain. They fired people. For 17 months, they were troubleshooting a ghost because the diagnostic instruments were the thing lying to them. Now, the escape. In 2010, someone updated Stuxnet's spreading code and got it wrong. The earlier versions were surgical. They moved by USB, hop by hop, with tight limits on how far they'd travel. The new version was greedy. It could spread over local networks and through print spoolers, and it stopped policing its own range. A contractor plugged a laptop into Natanz and then into the outside world, and the weapon walked out the same way it walked in. It hit computers in India, Indonesia, Azerbaijan, the United States, and eventually all the way back into Russia and, reportedly, machines at Russia's own nuclear facilities. To almost every one of those 100,000 machines, it did precisely nothing. It checked for its fingerprint, didn't find it, and stayed asleep. But it was out, which meant it was findable. In June 2010, a small antivirus firm in Minsk called Virus Blockada got a support call about Iranian computers stuck in a reboot loop. An analyst there pulled the sample apart and found something that shouldn't exist: malware using an unpatched Windows flaw, carrying stolen legitimate certificates. He wrote it up. That post went out to the wider security community, and within weeks, Symantec, Kaspersky, and a German industrial control researcher named Ralph Langner were all pulling on the same thread. Langner's team is the one that got to the bottom of it. They stopped analysing it as computer malware and started reading it as an attack on machinery. And when they decoded the payload, they found rotor speeds. Not data theft, not espionage. instructions for how to physically break something specific. Langner's conclusion, delivered on a public stage in 2011, was blunt. The target was Natanz, and this was built by a nation-state with a full budget and a physical test rig. Because you cannot write this code without a copy of the equipment to try it on. No government has ever formally claimed it. The reporting, most prominently David Sanger's in the New York Times, described a joint American-Israeli program under the codename Olympic Games, begun under the Bush administration and continued under Obama. American officials have never confirmed it. Officials have also never really denied it. That silence is its own kind of answer. So what does Stuxnet actually teach once you strip the spy movie off it? First, an air gap is a delay, not a wall. Natanz had no internet connection and was still compromised because the gap gets bridged constantly by the ordinary business of running a plant, contractors' laptops, vendor updates, a technician's USB stick. If your security model assumes the gap holds, your security model is a wish. Treat removable media as hostile and control what's allowed to cross. Second, your monitoring is a target, not a referee. The Bangladesh bank attackers broke a printer to kill the paper trail. Stuxnet went further and made the sensors lie. In both cases, the defenders were staring at the screens the attacker controlled, which is why the readings that matter should be measured somewhere the attacked system can't reach, and why the dashboard looks fine is a statement about the dashboard. And third, the one that outlived the operation. Stuxnet worked. It did what sanctions and airstrikes were supposed to do, and it did it without a casualty or a headline for months. Every government watching learned the same lesson, and the arsenals started getting built. 7 years later, the NSA lost control of its own stockpile, and the world got WannaCry. That's a story on this channel too. And it's the same story, one chapter later. The centrifuges at Natanz were replaced within about a year. The precedent has never been undone. If you want more true hacking stories told all the way to the end, subscribe. There's another one coming.